Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's been an interesting time for Batman fans. Obviously, we're coming off the end of Tom King's Batman run, which in the minds of a lot of people, including myself, it definitely got bogged down, was meandering, and was quite frankly not the ending I imagined Tom King had hoped for his Batman run. Batman is as hot as ever now with James Tynion at the helm. He's done a lot of changes. We started out with their Dark Designs. We've moved into the Joker War, the big Batman crossover event. He's been introducing new characters. And here with me to talk about, kind of what James Tynion's done to revitalize the Batman line is my good friend, freelance writer, freelance editor, the man behind Darkwing Duck, Aaron Sparrow. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's good to be here again.
Well, I'm glad you could make it. I do want to say this to the viewers. This is your first time visiting the channel. If you've been perusing, but you haven't made the commitment, it's time to subscribe to Thinking Critical YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications. If you enjoy this conversation, which I have a feeling you will, give us a big thumbs up. If you think we're a couple of rubes, you think we're a couple of morons, give us an enormous thumbs down. Either way, definitely let us know your feedback in the comment section below. Aaron and I both will be checking that out, and we love communicating with the viewers and having fun conversations about what we talk about, and we definitely appreciate it. We know that Batman sales had declined quite a bit, although it was still the best-selling ongoing comic book series in the industry. Batman it's a title that just moves on name alone. Not even Tom King's pretentious, boring writing standards could actually depress sales that much. But it feels like James Tynion has really energized the franchise, taken it in a new direction, although he is definitely borrowing from a couple of other creators, including Tom King, with what he's doing in Joker War. What's the magic ingredient that James Tynion has brought back to the Dark Knight?
I think that probably the main thing is Batman just seems like a man again. He doesn't seem like a depressed baby who needs his mommy wife, as I've heard people say. I've seen people tweet that basically Catwoman became his mommy wife. And that seems to be a running theme in Tom King's work, is that the hero is emasculated and needs a strong woman to prop him up. And Tynion seems to have returned Batman to form in the sense that he's confident again in his own abilities. He's basically out there being Batman.
Well, it seems like that wouldn't be like the hardest thing to realize when you're writing one of the most revered characters in comic book history, certainly one of the most recognizable heroes in the entire world, regardless of medium, Batman, that maybe the character himself and staying true to what he represents should be upfront and, for everyone to read when you're writing a Batman comic.
Well, Tom King seemed to fall into a trap that I see a lot of younger writers fall into, which is they tend to write characters as themselves. They try to project themselves onto the character. It rarely works, and it especially doesn't work with an iconic character that's so well defined as Batman. If you look over Tom King's body of work, it's all pretty much the same. It's all pretty much the same theme. It's depressed guy, and he's in a relationship, and he needs his wife to prop him up. And I don't know what that is in Tom King's psyche that can want to keep revisiting that. But it's not interesting. It's not heroic. It's not compelling. Maybe it's compelling once with one character, but to keep doing that in every book, and now even in Strange Adventures, it's kind of turning into the same thing. I think when you're working on a licensed character, a character that has all kinds of history, a character where you're essentially standing on the shoulders of giants, like Bill Finger and Chuck Dixon, all these people who have written Batman over the years and really added to the mythos. I just think that you do it a disservice by saying, how do I project myself into this character? I think that what Tynion has done is he's kind of gone back to basics, and he's restored Batman kind of to the character that he was, even though he does have to deal with all of that baggage that Tom King left behind. And I think that the fans are responding to it. I mean, Batman sales are way up at the shops that I do the ordering for, when they were really depressed, especially towards the end of the City of Bane. City of Bane seemed to be, no pun intended, but the straw that broke Batman's back.
It's crazy just what one creative voice can do for a character to really revitalize interest in him. And one of the things that I think Tynion's done that that is very effective is he's introduced elements to the story, elements that we're familiar with, but it's in preparation for a bigger story. I remember when Their Dark Designs came out, it seemed like every issue Batman had one or two new gadgets that were bigger and more interesting than the next one. There was like the Batwalker, and there was these little balls that would project bat shadows, and there was this Batwing, and I was like, come on, James Tynion, why does everything got to be about gadgets? Well, it was all set up because we know before Joker War, essentially Joker steals everything that Bruce Wayne has, steals all of Batman's gadgets. So it was certainly in preparation to show that Batman is using his technology heavily. He's reliant on it, and we're going to strip that part of him away. So he was highlighting that. So when he took it away, it would feel like a bigger loss. And that is effective writing. He was setting up an event. So when it happened, it felt more impactful.
He essentially, those early issues to me felt a lot like a video game. Like Batman has a new gadget. Like you just got to the next level, and now you have this new gadget that you have to use to move on in the story. And it kind of felt like that's what was happening early on. But you're right. It did kind of pull the rug out from under me when he had Joker come in and take all of that away. And it's a really good way to go with the story because, Batman has had Alfred stripped away from him. That support is gone, with Alfred being dead in the comics right now. So he became more reliant on his technology and on developing gadgets and things like that, which made sense as a character. He's a driven character, and he's going to come up with new solutions to problems when he loses, something, a support system that he used to have, and then to have it all taken away so quickly. It's an interesting way to go. It's got me intrigued.
He's almost like just juxtaposed his writing style to Tom King himself. In Tom King's 85 issue story arc, it's all about breaking Batman down and taking everything away until he rises up. I guess at the end he doesn't really do that all that successfully. We know the one time he decides to fight Bane, Catwoman basically has to save him, which was depressing. But James Tynion has essentially done all of that work in about 8 comic book issues, or maybe even less. He's taken his money, he's taken his house, he's taken all of his gadgets, he's taken Lucius Fox from him now. He's taken his relationship with Selena Kyle Catwoman. She's been driven underground. He's taken Dick Grayson from him, the best man he's ever known. He's now working for Joker, thinking that that's the man who raised him. So he's essentially stripped all these things away from him. He's done it in a tenth of the time. It's been far more effective. And now it's time to see Batman rise up again. Within City of Bane, Bane takes over the whole city of Gotham, and Gotham's brought to its knees, and Batman is essentially helpless. Here in the Joker War, the Joker has taken over the entire city of Gotham. Batman is less hopeless. He's just woken up, but he's fighting back immediately. He's not sitting on the sidelines moping, wondering how it all went wrong.
Well, Tynion Batman isn't a cuck, which Tom King turned Batman into. When you're a storyteller, you can bend characters. You can bend them to the breaking point, but you can't break them. You can't, if you do that, it's really hard to come back. So Tynion had his work cut out for him, and I don't know if Tynion was meant to be the permanent writer replacing Tom King, or if he was just supposed to do a stint. But he came in swinging for the fences, and if DC doesn't keep him on the book, that is a terrible mistake on their part because he is doing what he can to fix it. Now, there are certain things that I have little problems with, like when I got to the page where Selena was in the hospital and Bruce calls her and they do that bat, cat thing. I almost opened my mouth like I did every time that they did that in Tom King's run. But it's one of those things where it's a nod to the continuity. He's not completely disavowing it. I can appreciate that, and I think that he's really trying. I reread a bunch of the issues, from Dark Designs up through the current Joker War storyline. I'm a little bit less impressed than I was initially, and I think that it was because I was so disappointed with Tom King's run that Tynion just seemed like a breath of fresh air. And now that I've kind of reread it and had time to absorb it, I'm starting to kind of see how the sausage is made. And, I'm not sure where it's going to go. I'm not sure that he can stick the landing on this and pull off a satisfying ending to everything that he's building up. But I'm there to watch him try, man. I hope he does it.
Do you think it was a conscious effort on Tynion's part to take some of the overall themes and story elements that did not work for King and use them right away and make them work for himself, just to to remind people this is what Batman's supposed to be? I recognize what the complaints were, and I'm fixing it now. Or do you think it was just happenstance? They happen to use a lot of the same elements.
Tynion's he seems like a sharp guy, and he I'm sure he looked at the complaints that people were having, and I'm sure that he got some editorial direction too. Like, when he was brought in, I'm sure it was like, okay, how do we fix this?
Kind of moving on to another thing that James Tynion has done that's been exceptionally effective is he's realized the Batman mythos is a little bit stale. Hasn't been a lot new introduced to the character, and he's introduced a couple new characters, the main one being Punchline, but he's also created a couple of ancillary characters. Clown Hunter, who feels like he's going to be kind of a bigger deal as we're moving along. Also, the Underboss, which feels like he's straight out of kind of like John Wick. He's like the underground boss who could kind of make things happen. I think that's definitely refreshed the line. People are interested in the characters, and it's certainly bumped up sales, and people are very much drawn to Punchline and what that character has brought to the franchise.
Punchline is, she harkens back to the way that the comics used to sell books by having a sexy, kick-ass woman. Her design, I think when I first saw it, I didn't think it was incredibly inspired, but seeing it in action in the book and the way Gillum March draws her and kind of the things that she gets up to, I'm actually really liking her. And of course, she handed Harley Quinn her ass, which I was happy to see because ever since Harley, well, not so much with maybe the Palmiotti Amanda Connor issues, but recently Harley has become so incredibly insufferable that it was really good to see her get her comeuppance.
It would be nice for Batman to do that, but I don't think he's powerful enough anymore.
Well, I definitely think, because they've got her on the side of Angel, sort of, that you're not going to see that confrontation anytime soon. God, it would be nice if she returned to villainy. I do think she's a much better villain than she is an anti-hero. As an anti-hero, I just find her to be Deadpool light, and I think that Deadpool is already pretty played out at this point. But it was good to see. I like Punchline so far. She's a good enforcer, and the Joker kind of needs that kind of character because he's not the most physical character in the world. So it's good for him to have somebody who can kick some ass on his behalf.
So, Aaron, I did want to get your perspective. Obviously, I brought you on here because you are a successful writer. You are a successful editor. And there is one thing that Tynion's been doing that I don't really like a lot. He's introducing the characters, but I feel like he's trying to give too much information away, or he's trying to frame the way that the readers are seeing the character and not allowing them to come up with their own interpretation of what Punchline or Clown Hunter represents. And I do have an example here. When talking about Punchline, this is what James Tynion had to say. Punchline represents young people getting radicalized by dark ideologies, and she has been radicalized by the dark ideology of the Joker. She's a full believer in what the Joker is and what he represents. Probably even more so than the Joker actually believes anything that he says that he represents, because the Joker is more of a nihilist than he claims to be when he's waxing poetic. Now, that is interesting, and that is the point of view that he's writing the character. I think that's cool, and that's an interesting take on a character. I don't think he really needs to tell the readers that's what the character is. I think that it's more effective to let the readers come to their own interpretation. Everyone could have a different feeling about the character. You know what I mean?
In Tynion's defense, I think he's out there trying to sell books. So he's trying to get people excited about the characters, and maybe he's giving away a little too much in that pursuit. But my God, we need people excited about comic books, especially right now. So it's nice to see someone out there trying to do it. I think it would have been more effective just to maybe play upon the fact that serial killers tend to have like a lot of women fans. There's murders in prison that get fan mail from women who fall in love with them. Just that really kind of like twisted personality that gets drawn towards evil. So I think Punchline fits that bill better than maybe Tynion's being a little too verbose in the way that he's describing her. But it's
like someone radicalized on the internet is the way it feels like she's supposed to represent.
Yeah, like I don't know, is that a 4chan or a QAnon reference? I don't even know. Is that the point that he's trying to make? And to me, that's not interesting. To me, I would rather him lay it out on the page. Not heavy-handed, but just give subtle clues and let us figure it out for ourselves. I think that there's a danger in, I guess maybe it's a kind of a reaction to Harley Quinn, the way she became, she was this character that was in love with the serial killer and was a pawn, but she was also a very like twisted, damaged character, and she kind of became like this icon. And I remember, I think it was Mark Andreyko, someone online when the Suicide Squad photos came out, she had the jacket on that said "Property of the Joker," and there was one cosplayer who took huge issue with that and was going on and saying like that was misogynist and how dare they, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think it was Mark Andreyko who said, you realize Harley Quinn is she is a damaged character, right? Like you need to get over this idea that just because she is a woman that she has to be representative of all. And so I think that there's maybe Tynion's kind of like reacting to that, not that in particular, but just kind of that idea that sometimes people take characters the wrong way, or they kind of project things on them that the writer didn't intend. But that's kind of the beauty of fiction, is that people can have different interpretations and different views of it. I mean, Alan Moore didn't intend for Rorschach to be the most popular character in Watchmen, but that's exactly what happened, because he wrote him so well. He wrote that character so well that people saw something in that character that they identified with, or at least that they respected.
I 100% agree with you. This is the last thing I want to talk about. And there's no way that James Tynion really could have predicted that the times that we're in when he started this Batman run and started up to the Joker War. He could not have predicted a lot of these bigger cities in the United States would be overcome by mob violence, where the police would have essentially been told to stand down. They wouldn't be given the ability to go out and protect the citizens, and people would be given a choice. It's insane how symbolic it is of what we're kind of going through. There are a lot of cities right now going through their own Joker War, and this is how he described Clown Hunter. He certainly wrote Clown Hunter as a point of view character, but I don't think he realized he was writing him as a point of view of a lot of citizens living in the United States, this very day. This is what he had to say. When he was a kid, he saw his parents killed by the Joker, and his life was saved by Batman. He idolized Batman for years, but when Joker War starts, the Batman can't stop it out of the gate. He picks up a baseball bat, hammers in the batarang Batman gave him as a kid, and goes out to start killing the clown gang members terrorizing his neighborhood. He sees himself as a hero, but has tossed out the entire moral playbook of Batman and doesn't respect his old ways of looking at the world. Almost, this is, representative of young people seeing their cities burn down right now and having to make a choice. Absolutely insane and absolutely relevant to what we're seeing right now.
I think it was Chaikin who said, and I might be butchering this, so everybody know that I'm just kind of like paraphrasing what I remember from a Howard Chaikin interview. But someone asked him how he was able to kind of be ahead of the curve on things that were going to happen in popular culture, and he said something along the lines of, if you read enough newspapers, if you read enough scientific journals, things like that, you can pretty much see what's coming in the next few years if you really think about it. And I think that maybe Tynion is that's one of his gifts as a writer, is that he looks around him and he thinks, wow, things could really go off the rails if this and this happens. I don't think he predicted it, but I think that he could look at kind of take the temperature of the country and say, like, if things went off the rails, this could really happen. And of course, it did. One of those things where it's like, I don't want to say a happy accident, because it's terrible what's going on in this country, and the city's being burned down and the looting and the rioting, it's just disgusting. But as far as like his writing goes, it's one of those things where it's like, wow, he seems really topical and really timely. It's complete serendipity, but yeah.
It's the difference between propaganda and preaching in comics and social commentary. I think social commentary is important and certainly relevant, to where you can kind of give a snapshot, let people come up with their own interpretation of what's happening, and not telling them which side is right or wrong. Is Clown Hunter right in this? It's up for you to decide. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he's doing it right. I think that, don't beat people over the head with the message. Marvel is so boring to me right now, because every writer, every character has the same point of view. Nobody, ever has a differing opinion, or, there's nothing is challenged, no ideas are explored. It's just basically propaganda, like you said. And I think that Tynion is really, giving you some things to think about with this. And you do need to question Batman here and there. His methods, his ideology. Does it work? And as things change in society, is he outdated? So I think Clown Hunter is a good character maybe to explore that. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
This has been a great conversation. I think we could probably talk about Batman in general and James Tynion Batman even for another hour, but can't really go too long. But Aaron, I want to say thank you very much for joining me today and talking about this. Is very informative, and I can't wait to talk to you again, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me on.